if you come to me and say, I want to do $2 million in annual sales, I did $1 million in annual sales last year, and I want to grow as both a company and as a person. So then we start to look at your motivations and say, okay, well, is it because you can help another, 200,000 people or whatever the number may be that you helped last year? Is it because you can do something like write a book? Then we can start to get into those things. But to bring it back fully to the alignment side of things, if you come to me with a just a generic number with no real intention of why you want that number, then you're probably going to fall out of alignment quite a bit, and I'm going to spend a lot more time bringing you back into it. The idea of alignment in all of this with the Prayer of Jabez manifestation method is simply because our alignment continues to reinforce our faith continues to reinforce our blessings and our desires, and because that continues to be the cycle, having that one element of alignment out of whack can throw everything else.
Papaya! Hello all and welcome to another episode of Transform Your Future with me, Eddie Isin, where I sit down with entrepreneurs, thought leaders, and high achievers as they identify areas I can improve on and guide me to further my self-improvement practice. For more information and insights, join my newsletter at transformyourfuture.com, where I write about reinvention, personal growth, and entrepreneurship. If you like the show, you'll love the content on my site. We want to hear from you. Let us know how we can improve your listening and viewing experience. Suggest upcoming topics or a great guest you know for the show. Please reach out to us through our website, your podcast app, comment, or just text me directly at 813-722-1417. We want to hear from you. For this episode, I sat down with Bradley Reagan to discuss overcoming obstacles from a different angle. Most of the information and resources all point to having a strong mindset and developing the kind of mental toughness that keeps you focused on achieving your goal. In my experience, there's more to the story. Mindset, mental toughness, and a strong will are not all that is needed. There is more to breaking through than getting back on the horse and wiping the dust and dirt from our faces. What I found is that by using Bradley's techniques, you can shift from being overwhelmed and distracted to being focused and clear-minded. I interviewed Bradley because I believe we are spiritual, physical, and mental beings, and all of those areas need to be considered when addressing transforming your future and living your dreams. Bradley is a certified manifestation coach, and I sought him out to discuss this conundrum. If you are tired of hitting roadblocks, you can reclaim your focus with spiritual alignment and get back to your purpose. Spiritual alignment can help you break through life's toughest challenges. We've all experienced moments where our goals seem just out of reach, where no matter how much effort we put in, obstacles keep blocking our path. Whether it's personal or professional, these roadblocks can make us feel stuck, disconnected, and out of balance. Bradley discusses his transformative Prayer of Jabez manifestation method, which focuses on realigning your faith and purpose to regain focus and move past those obstacles. If you're tired of hitting roadblocks and want to reclaim your focus, this episode with Bradley Reagan will show you how spiritual alignment can be the key to unlocking your potential and moving forward with real purpose and transforming your future. Bradley, welcome to Transform Your Future podcast. I'm looking forward to our talk today. Let's just kind of jump right in and tell me a little bit how you came up with the Jabez manifestation method. What was the thing about that got you to want to do that?
Certainly. So Eddie, thank you very much for having me. I greatly appreciate it. As you mentioned, I developed the Prayer of Jabez manifestation method simply because I've been in the coaching industry for about 30 years now. And during that time frame, it's been a lot of me helping others, but not necessarily focusing it on myself. And then last year, in the beginning of 2023, we actually had 4 months where we had either a car accident or we lost a loved one or both. And during that time frame, it made me come back and really reflect on myself and what I wanted out of my own life, not just what I could do for others. And in that healing process, I kept coming back to my faith and to my alignment. And the prayer of Jabez continued to stick out to me. And what I realized was that it actually is a template. It's not necessarily just simply a prayer that can be said, but it's actually a template for us to be able to guide the way that we feel our life should be going. And so that's kind of how it was developed.
Well, that's great. What you're saying, I'm loving what you're saying. Can we expand? Like, first of all, who was Jabez?
So Jabez is a character that's introduced in the Old Testament in the middle of First Chronicles. It's in chapter 4, verses 9 and 10. Those are the only two places where he's mentioned in the entire Bible. And Chronicles is a list of basically genealogies to just kind of describe the 12 tribes. And so in the middle of all of these, so-and-so begat so-and-so, and on it goes, there's these two little verses, one of which is that Jabez was an honorable man, more honorable than his brothers. And his mother named him Jabez because he was born in pain. And then in the very next verse, verse 10 of chapter 4, it goes into his actual prayer, which is, depending on which translation you read, I'll summarize it real quick, but basically it is, bless me beyond compare, expand my territories, hold me in your mighty right hand, protect me from evil, and prevent harm from coming to me, as well as preventing harm for others through my actions. And so God heard and answered that prayer, that request. And so that wasn't the best telling of it, but you get the idea. But
no, it's fantastic. I love it. It.
Good. So, but we can break those down into individual pieces and say, okay, well, we do want to be blessed beyond compare, but why can't we say that we want to be blessed in certain areas beyond compare? So whether that's for my clients, whether that's wealth, health, time management, relationship management, whatever that may be, we can put that into that phrasing. So for me, I have a daily version where it's something similar to, Father, bless me beyond compare, bless my family, my clients, my businesses, bless those that I'm interacting with. And then I go into the expansion of territory. And the expansion of territory, depending on what you view that as, it doesn't have to be a physical space. Like, you don't have to buy a 1 acre farm and convert it into a 100-acre farm. Or buy a place on the beach and try to buy more places on the beach. But for us, I use it as expand my territory, and the idea that I want to reach the appropriate people. So like, for example, you and I having this conversation right here is because we both made steps to find each other through podcasting. And so that's the expansion of my territory today. And then holding us in his mighty right hand and protecting us from evil in all of its forms, that simply is kind of a blanket statement, but we can make it more of a direct protection. So like, I have a young son who drives quite a bit now, and so I may ask for protection around him and those that he may have in his car and so forth. So we can customize it and make it personal, but at the same time, we always go back to the same template. We know what we want, our goal or our desire. We know that we don't have to be the ones to implement the plan, but the plan needs to be presented to us, the expansion of our territory. And it has to be done in such a way that it doesn't cause harm for us or for others. We don't want to be selfish in this. It is granted our prayer, but at the same time, we don't want to be selfish in the idea that I deserve all of the blessings, Eddie, you deserve nothing in return for me getting those blessings. So I always try to incorporate a sense of service inside of that. And so when I'm working with my clients, if they want to generate great generational wealth, if they want to generate $1 million, it's up to them what they want to generate. But I try to guide it in such a way that it will never be impactful in a negative way on someone else, and hopefully in a way that they use it to help others, not just themselves with it.
Yeah, I love prayers. I love affirmations. I love, not really necessarily affirmations. Sometimes affirmations are a little played out and silly, but I mean, manifesting things in my life. I understand that there's a process that I need to be present, I need to be here, and I need to be focusing my energies and attention and doing the right things to allow those things to show up in my life, right? I always like to use this example because it's very simple. After being divorced and wanting to find a incredible person who was absolutely emotionally, physically, mentally healthy person, who had a very good disposition and a good view of life, somebody that I could build a life with, a partner. I immediately changed the house. I cleared out half my closet. I cleared out the other half of the room, so it was an empty dresser with empty drawers, and I made room in the garage so that another car could park in there instead of using it for storage. And like I did all these things to open up the space in my life for this other thing to come in. And so I really believe in prayers and affirmations for manifestation to attract those things into my life, to like be available and ready. Not so much, I don't have this diluted idea that I'm just going to manifest and sit on my couch and checks are going to arrive in the mailbox. I believe that I have to do things, I have to set things up, I have to participate, right? God can move mountains, but I need to bring the shovel and start doing the work, right?
Exactly.
So I love it. I love it. So tell me a little bit more about the whole idea of the blessing quest and the manifestation method and how you, work with your clients to help them to manifest these things in their life.
Right. So the manifestation method itself, that is actually what I do more one. So like if you were one of my clients, we would sit down and develop an entire strategy around what it is that you're looking to develop. So if bringing someone special into your life, then that's what we would focus on. Mm-hmm. The Jabez Blessing Quest is actually a school community. And what I use it for is more for public outreach more than anything else. What developed that really was Facebook, because you go into Facebook and you join all of these groups looking for something that you can use in your own personal life or offer to, for others to use in their lives. And it ends up just being clickbait. It becomes things like, if you believe that you're going to receive $1 million today, click like or comment, if you're on one of the spiritual sites, commenting, whatever the case may be. Mm-hmm. And so in response to that, I'm like, there is nobody, they can have several thousand to 100,000 people in these groups, but there's nobody teaching anyone anything. And you go through the comments and you realize that the people that are usually in it are the ones that are, like you said before, sitting on the couch waiting for the paycheck to come in, or they're on the opposite side. They're just there to tear down others. And so by putting it into a school community, I can control the focus, make sure that there's at least once or twice a week where we can go in there and learn something together as a group. And at the same time, because it is a community, you can provide your own posts and so forth. And so I can go through there and I can say, okay, well, Eddie talks about, relationships 5 different times in this community. Let's focus on relationships this week. And so, but the whole goal of it is to remove the clickbaitiness of Facebook, give people a place where they can come and learn. And at the same time, find others that are like-minded so they can continually renew their own faith in the system, their own alignment, and find answers, because we'll put all of those recordings into the different classrooms.
Interesting. You develop a community where you could lead with value and give the value and remove all those negative influences that might happen when people join Facebook groups and want to self-promote or, connect with other people, but they're not really there to learn stuff and share the process. Absolutely. Exactly. That's very interesting. So as a manifestation coach, tell me a little bit about what that's like for you. Why did you ever get into coaching to begin with? What was the thing that happened that got you into coaching and wanting to help other people?
So through a series of unfortunate events, we'll call it, back in 1989, I was in the ROTC program to become a pilot with the Air Force. I had to go into the Air Force Reserves in order to be able to generate more income than just simply the GI Bill paying for my schooling. And so while I was doing that, I went into a 14-month program for medical technology. But the Air Force asked me to become a trainer for them to teach total quality management, which, now granted, this is way back in the past. Every day I think about it, I'm like, man, I'm older. But total quality management was kind of a precursor to things like the ISO standards and so forth. It was a product by Xerox. While I was teaching that program for the Air Force, I had several young officers and other airmen come to me and say, we want to get, how do we seek promotions? How do we leverage TQM to the point where we can actually become more than just simply having to attend a training course? Excuse me for just 1 second. And that basically, excuse me, I apologize. That basically started the coaching career. And throughout my professional career, I continued to pick up students here and there and other people that were like-minded, wanted to do more of what I was doing or simply advance their own courses. And then 2 years ago, I went ahead and got my manifestation certification because I realized I was using a lot of those tools. And that's how I became a manifestation certified coach. And then last year, as I mentioned, it all went back to faith.
Interesting. So, am I understanding correctly that maybe previously you didn't talk about faith too much? It was maybe understood by you and whatnot, but you didn't bring it all back to a faithful practice involved with the manifestation.
Right. That's exactly it. That's exactly it.
Yeah.
My faith has always been very personal, and it's still very personal. But at the same time, what I realized that the common thread was that through faith, we refocus. And so long as we continue to refocus on our goals, that's where manifestation has its greatest impact.
Yeah. I think that, my faith, my beliefs are integral to everything about my life, and it informs all areas of my life. I'm blessed and fortunate that I have a kind of holistic approach to everything in my life that starts at the center with my relationship with, you can call it whatever you want, call it God, call it, intelligent design. I don't really care what you call it, but my connection to all living things, my connection to the universe, my connection to spirituality. And that is the center of my life, and everything else comes from there.
You're exactly right.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think it's important to talk about it, is what I'm saying. And I think I'm working on a book about reinvention and about identity and how we actually can change those things, and we could change the stories that we tell ourselves. And part of it has to do with this idea that I don't know how you can live through life and deal with the failures and the ups and downs and the ebbs and flows and accidents and misery and people getting sick and suffering. Like, how do you deal with all that if you don't have some kind of spiritual practice? You need some kind of spiritual practice in your life, even if it's as simple as just every day you wake up and you write a gratitude list, and that you recognize that you're connected to all living things. And even if it's just that simple, that's something you can build on.
Yeah. And I mean, you obviously your path is taking you to this conclusion, and it is the best conclusion you can have, because you're 100% right. Without our faith, without our understanding that we are part of the bigger picture and that we're all interconnected, it doesn't matter if you call it source, God, the universe, whatever higher being, higher sense of self, all of those things really come back to, where is our faith? How do we know that what we believe we wish to have is really in alignment with what we should have? As well as simply coming back to our faith allows us to always go back to a central starting. It keeps us in alignment. It keeps us going. I'll give you a good example. My daughter, when she was doing her testing for her, she's just in fourth grade, but when she was doing her testing for it, she was stressed out about it. She kept coming back to me and saying, Dad, I just don't know, because if I don't pass this testing, I won't get to fifth grade. That's not how it works, but in her young mind, that's what she thought. And so I kept bringing her back to her faith. And I said, okay, let's focus. And so in your faith, do you believe that you can pass? And she says, yes, I can pass. And I said, okay, so what's causing the problem? She said, well, I keep losing focus. I keep wanting to draw a picture. I don't want to answer questions. Well, let's recenter that. Let's continue to come back to our faith. We know we're going to pass. So let's keep that as a keyword. And then whenever you feel like you're losing focus, go back to your breathing exercises and just simply inhale the word peace, inhale the word success, inhale the word fifth grade. And in her young mind, she did that. And after she finished her testing, she said, Dad, I passed. I did it. I made it by 2 points. And, 2 points is a big deal for a fourth grader. But she said, I was able to realize when I was losing my faith to come back to it through my breathing exercises, and I passed.
Yeah. So. Yeah. You said something in there just now, which was something I want to kind of unpack. You were talking about the success I should have or could have in life. Can you kind of talk about that? It was like you were talking about aligning my spiritual beliefs with, my business, so to speak. Can we talk a little bit more about that? Because I know like some people don't align their faith with business because they feel that they're separate things, that they're
Right.
not connected.
Right. So for me, that comes back to a couple of different things. The main thing for me is that if you come to me as a client and say, I want to earn $1 million, and I don't know how and I don't know why, but I just want to earn $1 million, odds are you're not going to get there. And the reason being is because you don't know how and you don't know why. The why being the key factor. The how comes to us. Okay, if we truly believe in the manifestation process, the how comes to us, but the why has to be there. And so that for me is the alignment key. If you know why you want to be successful, if you know why you want to have the relationship you want to have, if you know the why, then the how will appear, and we just simply have to continue to be in alignment with our why. If you come to me and you say, well, my why is because I'm a selfish person, then odds are we're not going to be able to get there. Because that doesn't really align with the idea that we're all interconnected. We're all part of the same universe. So it really, I look for things when I take on a new individual client, I look for things where they have an idea of what they want to accomplish. They've either pursued it and not been successful, or they've either tried to figure out a way to pursue it without actually focusing upon it. And then in those realms, I can help them. But if they come to me with an idea but they have no, I guess, I want to say intuition, but that's not the correct term. They have no ambition, I guess is a good way to put it, to pursue the things that they're going to end up having to do to get there, then, they're probably not going to be a good client. We may not be able to get to a success. You mentioned something about waking up and just something as simple as a task of writing a gratitude list. If it's a person that doesn't want to take the steps to find the tools that work for them, then it doesn't matter what I do. We could sit here and talk for 5 days, and neither one of us would be better for it.
Yeah, and that's always the issue with coaching, is that people want guarantees and they want to know things, and it's like, it's up to you. I mean, you're the one it's all about you, your life and your actions and what you're going to do. Are you going to start changing the vibrational frequency that you bring to the day so that you can get to that higher level? Are you going to start adding these new things into your life to get where you want? Or are you going to just think that you could just talk about things and magically things are going to change because we have a conversation? It just doesn't work that way, right?
Exactly.
But I think, no, please go on.
No, I was just going to say, and that brings us back to the alignment thing too, because you have to be willing to continually reset yourself. You're going to wake up and not feel good. You're going to wake up and have a bad day because your mind just isn't in the right place. But if I can help you understand when you can recognize those days are about to happen, I can help you reset yourself using different techniques and different tools to say, you know what? I predicted that today is going to be a bad day, but now it's not, because I've reset and I'm back in my positive mindset.
Absolutely. Absolutely. A bad moment doesn't mean a bad day.
Exactly.
I tell people we could start our day over anytime. Just stop, turn around and say, I'm starting over.
Exactly.
Do over.
Exactly.
But when we talk about alignment, this is an area that I'm interested in. And I remember how you worded it before. So let's just say you have somebody that you're working with, that you're trying to help them to attain the things that the goals that they've set forth, and their motivation of why they want to do these things is in line with service and giving back, and their value and their mission statement and their vision is all about taking care of their clientele to have something better in their lives, to grow in a certain way, to provide a valuable service to them. I felt like what you were saying in there was that we need to evaluate what we want and what we don't want, and really look at that. Like, how do you come up with these numbers? Where does the number come from? When we say we want to do $2 million in sales this year, where does that number come from? Is that kind of what you were talking about, that we have to like go in there and understand why that is the number, why we want to do this in that way, and that we need to really understand that, and then align the goals with what it is we're doing?
Right. So the number I don't normally help them come up with. So, you can come to me and say, I had $1 million in annual sales last year, and this year I want to double it, but I don't want to do any more work than what I'm currently doing. And so for me, that becomes a pure business assessment. It doesn't become an Eddie assessment. It becomes an Eddie as a business assessment. And so then you say, okay, well, so there's a couple of ways that you can do that without getting into the manifestation side. You can increase your prices and hope that you don't lose customers. You can figure out a different way to market and so forth. But if you come to me and say, I want to do $2 million in annual sales, I did $1 million in annual sales last year, and I want to grow as both a company and as a person. So then we start to look at your motivations and say, okay, well, is it because you can help another, 200,000 people or whatever the number may be that you helped last year? Is it because you can do something like write a book? Then we can start to get into those things. But to bring it back fully to the alignment side of things, if you come to me with just a generic number with no real intention of why you want that number, then you're probably going to fall out of alignment quite a bit, and I'm going to spend a lot more time bringing you back into it. The idea of alignment in all of this with the Prayer of Jabez manifestation method is simply because our alignment continues to reinforce our faith continues to reinforce our blessings and our desires, and because that continues to be the cycle, having that one element of alignment out of whack can throw everything else out. So when I say alignment in those terms, what I'm saying is, how do I continue to bring you back to your focus because you know that your desire is worthy of what your faith is telling you want?
I would like to change gears for 1 second. When we talk about manifestation, I don't want to do a disservice to the topic of manifestation and alignment, because we're using these terms as if everybody who's listening understands what we're talking about. So I wonder if we just take a step back and talk about what the manifestation method really is and why it's important and why we want to be in alignment.
Certainly. So the manifestation method in itself is basically the idea that we have a vision for the way that our life should be. We had talked a little bit about relationships. So let's focus on that. If we want to manifest the correct people into our lives to advance our own life while providing service, basically advancing their lives as well, then we have to have an idea of who we want to be. And then we have to be able to take basically, for lack of a better term, a gap analysis and say, if this is who I want to be, then how do I become that person? Because I have to be the appropriate person to attract those that are going to be of the type that I wish to attract. And so, you'd mentioned earlier, setting up your room so that there's room for another person to have space inside of there. Setting up our lives so that there is room to have someone else enjoy the experiences that we enjoy with us. And that's really where the manifestation method kind of comes in. And there's a series of tools and a series of techniques that we can use to get to that point. If your listeners have ever watched The Secret or read the book by Rhonda Byrne or Napoleon Hill's the Master Key to Riches and so forth, then they have an idea that the manifestation is always a method. There are tools and techniques that we can use to get to where we want to be. The idea then of the alignment is, well, how do I keep my focus and my faith daily, sometimes hourly, on that idea and not have a slip back day or a slip back week or simply forget? I've had clients before that have done that. They'll come to me and say, 2 years ago, this was my goal, this was my desire. And then all of a sudden, 6 months after I developed it, I got about halfway there and I kind of forgot what I was doing, and so they lose track. And it's funny, humans are an odd bunch to say the least, but you can wake up today with a goal of, I want to finish writing chapter 2 of my book today. And then tomorrow you'll go play golf. And then Wednesday, you'll forget that on Monday, you were supposed to write a chapter in your book. And all of a sudden, it's 3 weeks later and chapter 2 still isn't done. So how do I keep you coming back to that?
Are you been a fly on the wall in my life over here?
Well, so kind of like you, I actually, in 2019, I started writing a book called The 7 Steps to the Starting Line, where I literally broke down at that point in time, a lot of what I was dealing with were people that wanted to fully change careers, not just simply change their job, but go to a new industry. And so we had a 7-step process where basically we found somebody that was doing what we thought we wanted to do. We learned about that person, what their skill set was and how they got it. And then we did a gap analysis on ourselves to determine whether or not we could do that. I say we because I've changed industries 6 different times now. And so, but then we do that gap analysis, and then you have to add something that's unique to you. So, like, for example, if you wanted to go into a new industry where sales was the focus and you're coming more from a management background, but what can you add to the sales background that other salesmen cannot? Those types of unique skills. Then at that point, you've done enough research and assessment to say, this is really what I want. At that point, it becomes a burning desire. And so long as it truly is a burning desire, then the next 2 steps are simply fulfill the gap and get started. And it's the same with the manifestation method. You have to be able to see what it is that you want. You have to understand that and basically teach yourself to understand the experience of having what you want, and then stay completely focused, completely committed to doing that. And I come into that from, last year, like I said, it started with a whole lot of loss and led to the Prayer of Jabez manifestation method, simply because what I realized was my faith that I had to keep coming back to, my alignment within my faith that I had to keep coming back to, so that I could heal from those and use those experiences then to help others continue the lives that they wished.
So part of my process also, when I was looking for this relationship, I had an idea of, there was a couple of people that were women role models in my life that had influenced me, that I liked, their views on life. I liked their belief systems, their ideas, their values. And so I had to map out this person who I don't know who they are, and I don't know where they are, and I don't know how I'm going to meet them. What are the values and beliefs that align with my values and beliefs that I'm looking for this person to have? So what are their characters, traits? What are those things? And so I think that's also part of the manifestation and the alignment to align those things. But I focused on it, and then once I achieved, what it was, then I stopped focusing on it, right? So when you were talking about forgetting about it, you're talking about if you haven't achieved it and then forgetting about it, right, and just going along, which obviously for me, I am wired to be in a relationship with a woman. That's just the way I'm wired. And so I'm highly motivated. I did all kinds of things to get out there and to find them. And some of it was crazy. I treated it like a business in some respects. I'm okay, so this is what I want to do. This is where I want to be. So now I got to go through there, and I don't know what I'm getting. So I have to have 40, 50 dates in the next month so that I could, figure it out, and get that information, get the feedback loop going and everything like that. So it was something that I wouldn't forget. You know what I'm saying? There was no way I was going to forget that. But in other areas of my life, I see that when life happens, that I could lose my focus temporarily, and then then I have to get back on the horse, so to speak. So, but I'm thinking there was something about what you said that I'm sorry, I'm going back there for a second, but it's just the idea is it the right thing? Am I manifesting the right thing? Is this really what God has in store for me? Is this really what I'm meant to do? Is this really my gifts and talents that I'm supposed to be sharing? Am I focusing on that? Or am I trying to do something that's not really grounded in my gifts and talents? Is this, because there's so many messages in the world. Honestly, you can go online and go on social media and the emails and everything, and it's 50,000 ideas every day that everybody's saying you should do this, you should do this, you should try this. This is a great opportunity here. That's a great opportunity there. And it's you have to have some kind of filter that you filter all that crap out of, and not just waste your time spinning your wheels and changing 15 times when because you don't like it, and so is that part of this process that you talk about, really understanding, is like affirming that this is the right direction.
So yeah, and I think what you're touching on there is kind of where I had mentioned earlier about the selfish side of things inside of manifestation. For what you're describing right now, what it sounds like is that you've mapped out the perfect person for you in your mind's eye. And now you're trying to figure out, how many times do I need to be around someone before I realize whether or not they have all of those qualities. Am I correct on that?
Something like that. I mean, how am I going to find this person? Does this person exist?
So what I would suggest on that is that sometimes we can get too detailed. So you might need to take your roadmap and say, what are my real prioritizations in all of this? What are my top 3 qualities that I'm looking for? And then from that point of view, start to figure out, where would a person like this be? If you're an avid golfer, then, maybe it's starting to participate in every possible golf tournament that's co-ed. If you're looking for someone that likes business and finance, then, your best places might actually be places where those types of gatherings are happening. So you might start to look at the community schedules for things like where I live is a very small little town, but we do have a community center, and they do various different programs and so forth. So if I'm looking for someone that is like-minded to me, then I may start to look and say, oh, they have an event where they focus on, developing business, developing sales. That would be something that, even though I feel like I've mastered that area, and don't get me wrong, I haven't mastered sales in any way, shape, or form. But even though I may feel like I've mastered that area, the person that you're looking for may well be there, and it might not be a bad thing to simply attend something that would, 6 months ago, you'd be like, I already know this, why would I go? And so we start to look at the different areas of saying, okay, well, Eddie is looking for a person with A, B, and C personality traits. So where would a person with A, B, and C personality traits go that Eddie likes to go to as well? And then that becomes where you start to socialize, to interact with those types of people. And then you'll probably have a better chance of finding it. It's kind of like, you want somebody that's very high end, then you go to the Kia dealership. So, you know what I mean?
Well, I think personally that I don't want to make it seem like I had some very hard and fast rules that I went by. It was just more about overarching themes and beliefs and ideas. I mean, just something simple, like, for example, I need to be in a relationship with somebody who believes in God and, is informed by God and has a relationship with God. Like, that's, is something important to me. So, those are some of the criteria. But I believe that also, like, my process always is informed by intuition, always informed by, do I feel that this is right? Is this the right way? Which way is, and, I'm always asking God of my understanding, please help me and guide me. So I'm very open to, the messaging that happens through people, places, and things, and my intuition. I'm very open to that and listening to that voice of reason or voice of conscience or the voice of God, however you want to explain it. But I think that's great. Yes, please.
No, I was just going to say, I would make a recommendation there. So that to me says that you're really more in tune with your expansion of territory. If we go back to the idea of the manifestation method of the Prayer of Jabez. So in your prayer, something to the effect of not just expand my territory, but to expand my territory, my openness to others. And then let that voice of reason, that voice of God, lead you to the next ice cream social.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And something like that happened to me, and I'm very, very grateful. I mean, I went to a lot of effort in what I did because it was very important to me. And frankly, I was traumatized by the previous relationship, and I definitely didn't want to repeat that. And so, in my initial development stage, it was like, my first rule was, if I'm attracted to you, I'm going to go the other way. Like, because I felt like there's something wrong with me in how I choose, and I need to change the way I choose because I don't want to end up in that situation again in the same pattern. But it's been a great experience, and God has we found each other, and it's been an incredible chemistry between us, and we have built a family, and
That's awesome. That is
yes.
amazing. Congratulations.
Thank you. I'm very grateful. She's my partner in all things. So, and without her, I like to say she's the spark and I'm the fire. Okay, and that's very much how our relationship goes. Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you this, Eddie, because I was in a similar situation. I went through a very, very heartbreaking divorce, and I was not in any position looking for another soulmate, another mate, another anything. And my wife found me, but she did it more from your perspective than from my perspective. My wife and I will be married 20 years in December this year. We've been together for
Congratulations.
21. Thank you very much. But we met because it's a long story. I had taken a new career field. I made a new jump. I went from Aflac, the insurance company, to an Oracle database company, which I used to teach Oracle databases. But with Aflac, I was what's called a special projects coordinator, meaning that I taught people how to sell. I'm not a salesman, but I can teach you how to sell. So I taught people how to sell Aflac insurance. They asked me to go to Texas, and I said no. And they said, please go to Texas. And I said no. And finally, they said, as a personal favor, will you please go to Texas? And I said, okay. So I took a team of agents down to Mesquite, Texas, just outside of Dallas. And we went to work in a hotel chain for John Q. Hammonds. Anyway, my wife, Magda, was actually there 2 weeks from Poland doing what we would consider an internship, what they call an externship. And while we were there, the manager of that hotel asked me to bring my team to a social gathering. And they asked me to bring Magda along with me because she was living in the hotel. She didn't have a car, but she felt that that was a good experience. So we did that night. Everything was fine. I wasn't looking for anything. Like I said, it had been a really nasty divorce. I really didn't care. And the next day, she had called her mother and told her that she had found the guy she was going to marry. And it took 53 weeks before I realized she was serious about it. Before we got married. But the reason why I bring that up is because in her mind, when she was a teenager, she had always had a recurring dream that she would marry somebody that drove a Jeep Grand Cherokee, which happened to be the vehicle I drove. And yet she knew that she was going to marry, for her, a foreigner, somebody from a country other than Poland. So here I come, 2 weeks after she gets to the United States, driving a white Jeep Grand Cherokee, taking her to this social gathering, bringing her back, and to me, that was it. And she started to pursue me. And so 53 weeks later, we got married. But she knew she was going to marry me from the moment that she realized what I drove. All because in her mind, that was her obsession. That was her goal. Yes. For lack of a better term, her
vision.
Her vision, her red line in the sand, that this has to be crossed before I can consider somebody a serious relationship. And so, we are 20 years later, 2 kids later. Yeah, it's been a crazy ride, but she truly is my soulmate. I mean, we support each other in everything that we do. And I never would have found her if I had gone out looking on my own. So for
That's
you,
great.
You've already developed that relationship. You have all of that, but others in our situations, there may be somebody out there trying to manifest us just as hard as we're trying to manifest someone else.
Yes, and what a great thing is when we find each other, and that's where we're at.
Exactly.
So going back, before we wrap up, I just, I'm enjoying my time with you. Getting to know you a little bit and your ideas and beliefs. I wonder, is there a test that we can take to better understand that we're focusing our attention to the right things, that we are actually working in a way to manifest our true reasons, our true purpose, our true goals? Is there tests for that to look at?
So you'll probably hear that there are, and I don't know any by a name, but what I go by is that if the prayer comes comfortably to me, then I'm on the right path. If the prayer is difficult for me to pray, then probably I'm doing something not correct. And it may be, it may take you a couple of weeks to realize it, but if you write down the prayer, and that's one of the things that I teach, is that we will write down our own prayers, our specific prayers.
Mm-hmm.
And we can just simply read them to ourselves until they're memorized, and then we can say them multiple times a day without fail. But if you can't memorize it, if it's hard for you to say, or if it makes you feel like, your feelings are very important in all of this too. If it makes you feel like this is too much or too little, or it just doesn't feel right for whatever reason, then it's time to sit down and rewrite it until it feels right. And that's strictly for the Prayer of Jabez manifestation method. If you'd asked me that question 2 years ago, it would be similar, but it would be more about, well, how do you feel when you envision this end scene? How does it make you feel? Are you truly excited, or are you just simply going through the motions and you're like, okay, I did everything Brad said, so now I'm done for the day. And if you're not driven to do it on your own, then odds are it's not the right way. So,
interesting.
But I mean, it's not like there's a multiple choice question that you can answer and say, yeah, I'm right on track. The only thing you can really do is say, does it feel right with me? Am I in alignment with what I really want? And how does it make me feel as a person to want this thing?
Yeah. The two issues I have, trying to help people and guide them, as you do, is one, a lot of what we're talking about is discovered through self-honesty, through self-observation. And sometimes, people are in denial about, really what the issues are that they have. And as long as you're in denial, it's really hard to actually, understand what areas you need to change in yourself to, how you're blocking things from happening. So that's one thing. And then the other thing is, darn it, sometimes the idea of what somebody is working towards is not really their idea. Like they've taken it on that this is what I'm supposed to do, this is what I'm supposed to be, but it's not really coming from who they are and what their gifts are and whatnot. And so this is another issue. And I certainly could see how, if you're in denial and you're trying to change things in your life, but you're not really dealing with the actual parts of you that are causing self-sabotage, or, why you're a people pleaser and you get involved in relationships with other people and they don't really fit you. They're not really right for you, but you go with it anyway. Do you have an area of scarcity? Do you believe like relationships are scarce and you have to just have a relationship? You meet somebody and, well, I better just take this relationship because they're hard to find. These kinds of things. So how we get in our own way all the time is like an important part of the process. And so there's a certain amount of honesty that people have to have with themselves, and being able to talk about that, right? Like, it's just so amazing to me. I tell people all the time, like, the simplicity of it all is being able to have somebody that you could talk to, that you feel has your best interest at heart, that you can trust them to just share the noise in your head and the ideas that you think about, so you can really evaluate, like, is this something that's good? Is this something that's bad? Is this a negative influence in my life? Is it a positive influence in my life? And it's just amazing how these tiny conversations that were not really big, monumental conversations that I've had with people, exposing some of my thinking, I've gotten feedback like, well, I don't understand why you think that way. Like, that doesn't seem reasonable to me. Like, is it possible that those things can happen? Well, of course it's possible. Well, then you need to change your thinking. If it's possible to happen, why are you saying it can't happen? Right? Just simple things like that then opens me up to realize, holy crap, I've been in my way. Like, a simple thing that happens to me often is I find duality is an issue for me. And I could easily get trapped in either or thinking. I can get caught up in like, so it's either left or right, like it's black or white. There's like no gray area. And like recently I went through something and I was basically setting myself up for failure by saying to myself, I can only do this. I can't do that while I do this. So I have to choose either do this or do that. And as I explored that and I journaled about it, I realized, wow, what a crock of shit right there. That's nonsense. Like, of course, you can do multiple things in your life. You can, every day, you can have multiple things that you're working on in different areas of your life. Of course, you can incorporate that into your life and do more than one thing. Why would you lie to yourself and tell yourself either you're going to do this thing and you can't do that, or you have to just quit that and just do this? Like, that's ridiculous. Or take a break from it. Like, for the next month, I can't do anything else but just work on this. It's ridiculous, but it's only through this self-observation and, openness that you can find those things. So, man, that's deep.
Yeah. And actually, I mean, you've touched on a couple of different things in there as well. We need to do the things for us that feel right to us. We really can't do the things for us that other people tells us we have to be. So, for example, you're writing your book, and you have an idea, you have an outline, you have a focus, you have an end point, meaning that you know what it is that you want to convey in your book. But if someone was to come along behind you and read the first 3 chapters before they finish, they don't see the whole vision. They only see the beginning of what you've started. And all of a sudden they're throwing in ideas and concepts and saying, well, you should really focus on this. You should really focus on that. And maybe you'll pick up a couple of good things in there. But if you try to do what they're telling you to do or what they're suggesting for you to do, what you'll find is that you get frustrated. And once you get frustrated, you start to lose your focus. You start to lose your alignment. You start to lose your faith in your book. And your idea becomes second nature to what they've suggested to you. And all of a sudden, now you have something that you're not passionate about, that you have no joy. Mm-hmm. And so I bring that up simply because when I get into the idea of what I want to write next or what I want to do next, I really don't share that with anyone until I have the full concept. Because then when they come to say, okay, well, what about this? What about that? Then I can come to it from a mindset of, does this make sense with what my original goal was? Does it fall in alignment with what I'm trying to do with whatever this work may be? And if the answer to that is yes, then you can incorporate it. And if the answer to that is no, you can just simply say, I appreciate your advice, but this has been my detail from the beginning. This is what I'm looking to accomplish, and I'm going to stay on this path.
Yeah, I that really resonates. And I think one thing is, I give myself a break. This is like another important thing that I just want to say is, some people, especially men, are very hard on themselves. They beat themselves up. They hold themselves to some ideal that no human being could actually live up to, and I have found myself doing that in my life. And I don't know, about, geez Louise, it was like around 1996 that I just said, like, I'm done with this. Like, I'm done with this. I'm done with thinking I'm not enough. I'm done with beating myself up because of mistakes. I'm done with blaming myself or other people about things. Like, I'm just so sick of that shit. And, I don't want to keep falling into these useless patterns of useless feelings and thoughts. And I made a real attempt to, focus on the good and just forget about all that other stuff and focus on what I can do instead of what I can't do, to focus on my energy and attention to what I can influence and impact and not the things that I can't control. So it's been a blessing. And yes,
and
please.
that ability to reset and refocus is really the key to everything. Sometimes it's daily, sometimes it's every, couple of years. But if you have that ability to reset and refocus, then you can certainly have the life that you're looking for.
Because, Brad, I suffered back then from self-pity and depression at times because I would like, I had a business and things were going well and I had some freedom in my life, and then something would happen, like I got into a car accident and then I couldn't walk, and so I really couldn't take care of the business anymore, so I had to figure out a new way to live, and it was very depressing, and I gained a lot of weight. It's just all these crazy things. And then I felt like this means I'm a failure, like there's something wrong with me because of these things happening. And, I would look at different areas of my life, things I did and how they ended up. And I would feel like, I was a screw up. That's why these things happen. And, I had to look at where those ideas came from, because they can't be my ideas. Why would somebody walk around beating themselves up all day? It came from somewhere else. I had some learned behavior I had to look at. And so, but it's been great. It's been a really worthwhile thing for me to let go of that and tell other people, please don't do that to yourself. That's not a way somebody who loves and cares about themselves would treat themselves. You got to really learn how to love yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. And, a lot of people tell you, you're the main character in your own book, but you're also the main villain. And so, we write that book, whether or not we admit it to ourselves or not, we write that book. So the question becomes, how do I want to write the villain? And sometimes you have to go back, and I do a lot of memory where I'll go back and say, go back into those memories and take yourself out of it, put yourself into the audience, and then put yourself in the director's chair and say, okay, this memory happened this way, but we all know that our memories are not 100%. So let me make a modification to it. We have memories of the key moments in our lives. We have memories of some of the mundane things in our lives. But if you talk to somebody else that was there, they'll remember it differently than you will. So there's nothing in ourselves that says that we have to always consider ourselves the idiot in that scene. We can consider ourselves the educator in that scene to teach us what not to do the next time the scene comes up.
Yes, we can learn from that.
Exactly. And so, as I mentioned, I went through a really nasty divorce. Well, I spent a lot of time working on myself saying, these were the highlights and those are the moments that I want back. But I had to go through all of the pain moments as well, to the point where I did too much memory work on myself, in my opinion, where I have very few memories of those years that we were together. But the memories that I have leave me in a healthier place than trying to remember all of the things that I could have done better, all of the things that she could have done better, and make me a better communicator, because I've gone back into them. I've said, okay, when there's a moment of tension, just get up and walk away, which was what I would normally do. Let's find the root of that tension and walk through it. And so my wife and I now have much better communication than I've had in any of my previous relationships, because I spent that time to make it so that I understood that this was my area where I need to learn from in those memories. And now, we don't have the 100% best communication ever, but we can have a conversation, which I wasn't able to have before.
That's awesome. That's awesome. My wife and I, we have a saying that we live by. We want to be told the bitter truth and not sweet lies. So as long as we focus truth above all things, truth about me, my thoughts, my ideas, my feelings, the directions, as long as you're honest about your thoughts, ideas, and feelings, like, I love you, so I could deal with that, and we could talk about it, and we could figure it out. Yeah. So we've talked about so many things, and I enjoy these conversations with people talking about these ideas. They're so helpful to me to stay focused, to stay on top of things. There's a cathartic part of this for me. I don't know about the audience. I hope they go through something as similar. But we've talked about a lot of things, and I just want to ask you, is there anything that we haven't talked about that you want to talk about?
Honestly, you've had some great questions and some great insights. The only thing that I would kind of leave your audience with is simply, it's not a negative to have a desire. It's not a negative to want to be better for yourself. But at the same time, we should always be of the idea of what I change in myself will have an impact on those around me. And so we should be considerate of those, but we shouldn't allow that to be our limiting factor to have the life that we wish to live.
That's exactly, you've now put that in such an eloquent way. That's exactly what we were talking about, that I kept trying to get to before when you were talking, that I didn't quite understand. This is the moment. This is the moment. So it's not a selfish, self-centered way of thinking about what's in it for me and what do I want, but it is more of a selfless, what is my skill set? What are my purpose in life? What are my talents and skills? let me give that to the world to help the world, to give back what was so freely given to me, to support my family and to give my children the lifestyle that I want to give my children, and, take care of the people who are close to me that I love in my life, and you make an impact in society.
Right. Yeah. And, I'm sure that your life is the same, but our greatest blessings, or at least my greatest blessings, my greatest joys in life have come because I've helped someone else. And that experience of helping someone else has actually made it so that I'm better able to help myself. And so, I'm very successful in what I do in the corporate world. I'm very successful in what I do in my private world. But I wouldn't be that successful or recognize my own success if it weren't for the fact that I see the impact it has on others.
That's excellent.
So,
all right,
Eddie,
Brad.
thank you so much.
Yeah, please.
So I appreciate the time that we've had, and, I'm always happy to listen to you. If you need anything, just holler.
Absolutely. The feeling's mutual, my friend. I will be in touch with you.
Thank you.
For more information and monthly topics of interest, please go to transformyourfuture.com and join the newsletter.